Like there's no, this is my thing, it's black, and there's
never noticed it before.
they have glasses on.
Yeah, but it wasn't Zoom, it was. What make it? I don't know video. Mute. Stop video.
No, they live stream it on YouTube, right? Yeah.
Oh.
But it won't make my picture show.
Oh. Stop video. I don't know. Live. Is it? Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Record? No. Reactions, app, participants. Here.
Oh,
And mute me. Yep.
make
Unmute.
okay.
It says your camera's on, so there's something wrong with your camera because it says stop video. Here, I'll stop video. Oops. And then
Okay, I go on farmers markets. I'm always black, but I do that
Well,
on purpose.
I just stopped the video. There we go. Yeah. So it's just not working.
Oh.
But it maybe just not showing you. But it says the video's on.
Okay.
That's why it's having so much trouble because it. Yeah. Yeah, usually when you open it, it's on.
Is there a camera? Maybe there isn't a camera.
Maybe there's no camera. Well, then if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. You can just say I'm here, I'm present, but
I mean, it's picking up what you're saying, right?
exactly. The microphone's on.
Okay.
You can mute yourself if you don't want them to hear you talking. Okay. So you've got a couple minutes before it starts?
Yeah.
Well, good luck.
Thank you.
Oh my God. Yeah, Billy says you got this. I'll leave you.
Oh, I love you guys.
The pressure.
Good to go.
All right. Would you all join us for the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everybody. We've got a few in the crowd today. So before we open our regular board meeting, we have a couple of public hearings this evening. So on our agenda, we have two public hearings, one for the Community Development Block Grant and another one for a liquor license for Why Not on the Water Gourmet Eatery. Who's going to go back to work? Okay. Does anybody mind if I move these up first? All right. Is there anyone here to speak on the public hearing for the liquor license for Why Not on the Water Gourmet Eatery LLC? Any questions, comments, concerns? All right. Hearing none. Anything you want to add? If you didn't bring your it's looking good down there. So yeah, I was happy to get that tree out of the way. So yeah. We can plant something. So, yeah. Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing on the liquor license for Why Not on the Water Gourmet Eatery and LLC. So with that, we'll open the public hearing for the Community Development Block Grant Economic Development Program application. I think we might have somebody here to speak on that. Come on in. You know the drill. Introduce yourself, Max.
And it's showing me as signed in on
Max
Zoom.
Johnson
Can you hear?
with the Midcoast Council of Governments, here to talk about the Community Development Block Grant. I think this is the fourth or sixth time at this point I've come to do it in 1 year alone. The state approved or allocated $60,000 to Desjardins on Hodgson Street. Right now, this public hearing is just one last chance for people to say the town's going to be sort of the middleman in this, and to see if there's any last minute concerns about Desjardins getting this grant. I'm going to be helping with the administrative work. Desjardins, I believe, has signed some contracts that I think Andy has that goes over that they accept responsibility if they don't fulfill the contract obligations. And Susan's already, I don't know if she's on Zoom or not,
Here.
but she's
It's
already
supposed-
all set with getting employees and the match going. So
Is there any questions, comments, concerns? Anybody? No, we think Yeah, keep things moving along. It's looking pretty good. So, yeah.
Just need the resolution and I think we're all set.
All right. Well, with that, we'll close the public hearing on the CDBG Economic Development Program. Thank you, Max.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, I'll call the June 21st Select Board meeting to order, the town of Damariscotta. We've got a full complement tonight, and Dan Hunter's newest to the board here. This is his first official meeting, so welcome, Dan.
Thank you.
If it's all the same to the board, I'd like to move official action item number 3 up on the agenda. That's okay. That would be you guys. So I'm not making you wait. We try.
Health inspection.
Trying to get everything ready. Yeah, yeah. So we don't like making you guys wait too long. So yeah, so we could do that. Good enough. Do I hear a motion on
I make a motion to approve the liquor license for Why Not?
okay. We
I'll
have
second.
have a second. Josh, seconds. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Motion passes. You can go back to work.
Can I just pick it up tomorrow? So I
Believe so, Andy, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Probably by lunchtime, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys. Have a good night. Have a good night. Yep. And do we have folks waiting on the resolution for CDBG? Is that
Susan's on.
is Susan?
I am here, yes.
Oh, okay. Are you able to do we have somebody online there that
Got it on here, it's just not
to come in?
I can hear her in the background, but she's.
Okay.
Maybe the TV volume's turned down too low.
Let me try and turn it up.
So
Yeah, I can hear
she's,
the
she's
voice.
talking.
Oh,
Here, I turned my computer up. Does that help?
just barely here and there, huh? Yeah.
Just repeat what you say.
Okay, okay. Well, I'm just saying, we like, not keep people waiting, so it's later on the agenda, but we can move that official action item up if it's okay with the rest of the board.
I'm good with
So
it.
you good? All
Sure.
right. Yeah, I'll make a motion to wait, hang on a second here.
Can I get your cheat sheet?
Yeah, I'm getting used to my bifocals here, so Andy, this is word, is this allowing acceptance of resolution will allow me to work with the business? That's,
You have to say all that?
well, I'm just trying to, I was
Recommend motion.
the wording on the motion there, I was just, it confused me a little bit.
So the motion to approve the resolution as presented.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the resolution as presented. Yeah, sorry, I was trying to read the whole thing there, but so I'll move that. Do I hear a second?
A second.
Andrew's gonna second. Any discussion? All those in favor? All right, keep at it. Yeah, let's
Wonderful.
get them.
Thank
Oh,
you.
yeah, there's more excitement to come, so.
Thank you so much.
All right, so we'll get back on track there. Thank you, everybody, for being patient. So, do we all get a chance to look at the minutes of June 7th?
Mhm.
Great. I think there was some amendments there on a wording on, I think, one of Tom's comments. So those all got through. Did everybody get a chance to see those changes yet? And Linda's seen them as well, because we're all set there. Okay. All right.
I got a question.
Yeah.
Under D, there was this Service Center Coalition 2003, and there's some things that towns are supposed to do. Are we doing them?
Are you in the minutes?
I don't know. I think so.
Yeah. Have a different.
Like.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, it's LD 2003. What does that actually mean for a town like Damariscotta?
So the LD 2003 represents the bill from the last legislative session. They continue to use that name, even though there's a different LD 2003 for this
Is
year's
that the
session.
ADU?
That addresses ADU and density bonuses for housing, to trying to address the housing shortage in the state.
Yeah, because there was another report I read that towns are supposed to have ordinances updated by July 1st.
Right,
Have
so
we done that?
one of the big pushes MMA has put forward this year, along with a lot of other towns individually, separate from that, is to say we need more time to be able to go through our regular process. The rules, they went through rulemaking late this winter, and the final rules were not, even provided to towns until this spring. And so if we were to wait for the rulemaking process to finish to see what the department rules were around how to implement, how to carry this new law out, we don't have the time to draft, read, draft, and then go through our process. So towns are asking for more time. So what it looks like they're going to settle on is towns that have a council form of government are going to be on a January 1st, 2024 deadline to adhere to that law. Towns like us will have until July 1 of 2024. So we have another year to be able to do this. Now that will require another rulemaking process to go through. They'll have to go through for towns like us. If there's no changes, we should have enough time to be able to do that. Depending if there's changes or not through that process, it's going to delay and probably become a problem for January 1st towns. But if the only thing that changes is these dates, it should be okay.
Yeah, state getting ahead of themselves and. Yeah.
Sure. And has the board thought through what the implications might be for the town?
We have not talked about it at the board level. The planning board typically is tasked with updating the ordinances, and once they have draft recommendations for the select board to consider, the select board then reviews and calls for a special town meeting, which would require a public hearing ahead of time, and the meeting to follow. So it kind of goes through that process per our ordinance.
Okay. Thank you, Dan. Yeah. Do we have a motion on the minutes?
Sure, I'll make a motion to approve the June 7th minutes
All right. As amended, right?
as amended. Yes.
Thank you, Andrea. Second? I'll second. Any discussion? All those in favor? All right, motion carries, and you're going to abstain?
I'm going to
because
abstain. I
you
wasn't
weren't
here.
So- And Josh wasn't here as well. So we have three, and then Josh and Dan both abstain on that. So. All right, let's move along. We have a couple of financial reports here. I trust everybody's got a chance to look at payroll warrant 57 and AP 58.
I'll move payroll warrant 57.
Thank you, Josh. Second, Tom seconds. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor? All right, so moved. And we have AP 58. I'll move AP 58. Wait a second. Andrew, you second? Okay. Any discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor?
I'm abstaining.
And Josh is going to abstain? Yeah, no, you can vote, Dan, huh? Sure. Yeah, sure. You read them, so yeah, you're good. You're good. Yep. We'll give you a couple passes here before we make you vote, so. Yeah.
Well,
All right, so we have 4, Linda, and then Josh abstains on that one, so. All right. And let's move on. Anything in snail mail and any citizen comments, correspondence we need to know about?
I don't have anything to share. I think Patty had something she'd like to
Yep.
share.
Yeah, we can move out into the, yeah, come on up, Patty. Yeah. How are you? Yeah, good.
On behalf of the cemetery trustees, I'd like to extend an invitation to the select board members for a tour of our cemeteries at your convenience.
Okay.
Happy to arrange whatever fits for everybody's schedule. We haven't done it in a few years, so Josh has been before, but the other 4 of you haven't had opportunity to do
Yeah,
that.
I would very much like to do that.
So
Yeah.
plan on a couple of hours, some afternoon after work. I don't know your schedules, or a Saturday possibly. Just be tick prepared and ready for
Yep.
rough walking in the woods.
So,
Make sure no one grabs you.
yeah. And no, that would be great. We asked him briefly there at the meeting, and I said really exciting. So yeah, so we'll figure out something, and then if there's 3 or more of us, then we just have to get it out there because it makes a
Right.
quorum. So we'll let
Exactly.
everybody
And
know
the
what we're
public is
doing. and-
Welcome to.
absolutely.
attend As well. So
Yeah.
we just it'd be nice if we had a little heads up, maybe call to the town office. So because we're going to have to carpool.
Yeah.
The only place that has sufficient parking is Hillside.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah.
So-
No, sounds good.
Okay.
We'll make something work. So I'm
Let me know
Looking
when you want to
forward
go
to
and
that.
we'll
Oh,
make
yeah.
it happen.
awesome.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Patty.
Thank you. Yeah. All right. Anything else? Anybody else for anything? Yeah. No, good. Anybody? I don't see anybody in the.
We can, if we'd like,
So-
I think we've got a couple of folks here to talk about the Climate Resilience Partnership. Representatives from Lincoln County Regional Planning and Coastal Rivers. The county planning office had reached out to see if we'd be interested. This is something Isabel and I've talked about.
Okay.
Heard about the partnership with the state to help meet their climate action goals. There's some grant money available if we become members, and kind of partner with the state to help meet that. But we can't access those funds until we are accepted into the partnership.
Oh,
And so
okay.
there's a service provider grant available. In the county planning office had reached out to see if we'd be interested in being one of the communities that they might work with to help us get into that, and that they would apply for funds to be a service provider. Coastal Rivers also has reached out to see if
Oh, gotcha.
we'd be interested in working with them to help us get there. So I had asked if they'd communicated to see if maybe there's a partnership they could make so that we don't have to pick between one or the other, and then maybe there's more towns that they could work with. So I don't know if you'd want to come up and introduce yourself and kind of share a little bit
One of those,
to the
yeah.
board about what that program looks like and why we might want to, what it would look like to work with you on going forward.
Yeah, so I
Just
just
have, yeah.
Is that okay?
Oh, yes, we'll take handouts. So, yeah.
So this is just, the first
Thank you.
page is a brief overview of the Community Resilience Partnership. And on the back page is the list of 72 actions which can be used for the community action grants. And then on the second page, we have the draft letter of support from the town.
We'll have, if you guys should just introduce yourself
Yeah,
into the
absolutely,
mic
yeah.
and whatnot when you get ready. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, just housekeeping. Yeah.
Yeah, hello, my name is Laura Graziano. I'm the Assistant County Planner and GIS Coordinator with Lincoln County Regional Planning Commission.
And I'm Talia Mullen. I'm a climate strategy fellow at Coastal Rivers.
Yeah, so we're here today to give you a little bit of an overview. I know Andy's pretty familiar with the program and not sure how much you've explained to your select board about it, but
Just a small amount. I think it was something that just generally Isabel and I were hoping that we would get presented to them, and got a little sidetracked on that effort. So
okay, great. Yeah, so we can give you a little bit of an overview of the Community Resilience Partnership itself, the service provider opportunity, and answer any questions you may have. So Talia can give a little bit of a background.
Yeah, sure. So the Community Resilience Partnership, it was formed in April of 2022 out of recommendations by the Maine Climate Council's 4-year climate action plan called Maine Won't Wait. The partnership is intended to help Maine communities reduce their emissions and become more resilient to the effects of climate change. And the partnership is set up as an enrollment program that involves thorough community engagement and priority setting. So in rural communities, they have access to grant funding to support climate action through the program's Community Action Grant, as well as direct support for climate mitigation and adaptation projects. The service provider grant is available for assistance to municipalities for the enrollment process. So I can also talk a bit about service provider assistance, what that looks like, and why this particular partnership between Coastal Rivers and the Lincoln County Regional Planning Commission makes a lot of sense. So not every town that's interested in taking climate action has the personnel or the know-how available to prepare to enroll into the CRP. Recognizing that this gap in capacity exists, the program, it allows for community organizations to assume that role as a service provider and assist towns in enrolling in the program and writing and submitting community action grants. LCRPC and Coastal Rivers will be partnering on the service provider grant. Having been in communication and partnerships throughout the years, our two organizations are quite aligned in our interest to take meaningful climate action while also providing practical support to Lincoln County communities. LCRPC and Coastal Rivers offer complementary skill sets with expertise across GIS, natural resources management, and community engagement. So collaborating on the service provider grant really further kind of enhances, project outcomes and maximizing the benefits that are made possible by the Community Resilience Partnership.
Yeah, so like Talia was saying, one of the big benefits of enrolling is the access to the Community Action Grant, which is available to all enrolled communities. The grant is available it's 3 times per 2 years, so around every 8 to 10 months. So we're currently in a grant round right now with the deadlines being Friday for the service provider application and July 7th for the Community Action Grant. So pending if we move forward with this enrollment process and apply for the service provider grant on Friday, the beginning of August 2023 is the pending beginning of the award period. So that's when we would begin the process of the grant process. And then it would wrap up for the next grant period, which is late winter, early spring of 2024. So the enrollment process is 4 steps. The first step, which would be the first thing that we start to work on in August, is adopting a municipal resolution, just saying that the town is committing to reducing emissions and preparing for the results of climate change. And then the second step would be forming or appointing a committee or a staff member to work with the service providers throughout the process. So we've talked a little bit about Andy about what that might look like, but that's something we can flesh out in the future. And then from there, the next steps would be filling out 2 community self-evaluation documents. The first one is a list for community evaluations that really overviews what priorities the town has already acted on and what they're looking to do. So then the 72 list, which is on the back of that first page, is the second document that we would overview. So that would be priority setting and looking at which actions on that list have you already worked on and which actions are the next ones that will be added to the list. And then from there, we'll take those 2 documents for the third step, which is hosting a public workshop. And that's when the piece comes in with a lot of like robust community engagement. And we would be facilitating all these meetings, setting it up and doing the public outreach, putting them in our newsletters to the local newspapers to try to really get as many people as we can to engage in this process. When at the workshop, we would take those 2 documents and flesh them out and see what the community really sees as their priorities. This would include, some engagement tactics, whether that's a SWOT analysis or like a red light, green light type of activity to get everyone involved. We're talking about even trying to engage the schools as well and sending out surveys or something to see, try to get some students involved with the process. And then the last step is submitting the enrollment materials and the community action grant itself at the late winter, early spring 2024 deadline. So we would be doing all the work of writing the grant and submitting it along with the enrollment materials at that deadline. So that would be the, the big process of putting that grant together, which is a pretty heavy lift. The grant is for up to $50,000 and it's a no match grant. Yeah, so what we're asking today is if you guys would, support this process of Coastal Rivers and Lincoln County Regional Planning working together and moving forward with this.
Question.
Yeah.
Is there a timetable or requirement for any number of these items on the 72 list to be incorporated in the application, or what's the expectation of how this would be attacked?
It's really up to the town for the order that you want to go. So this,
But there's no minimum requirement. If you get, you sign up for the grant, you've got to do something, I assume.
yeah. So that's would be figuring out the priorities for the community action grant, which is the upcoming grant round. And
Second question, have you talked to anybody on the comprehensive plan committee for Damariscotta? Because there may be some overlap on what they're doing.
yeah, not directly, but that would definitely be something we would be in contact with them with. I'm not sure if they're doing a specific
Yeah,
chapter.
I can talk to that. I'm on the
Yeah.
comprehensive plan
Okay.
committee, and I know that this seems to dovetail with a lot of the conversations that we've been having. And one of the sort of the planks of the comprehensive plan that it will likely be is one is around climate resiliency.
Yeah.
So this is very consistent with sort of the current thinking, even though the plan itself is 2024, but it's very consistent with some of the early thinking there. So I would encourage some sort of dialogue around that, and so that a lot of these ideas, assuming that people are good with it, get incorporated into that document as well.
Are you
And-
working at all? I'm sorry, with Sarah Gladu? Is she on?
Yes.
She is sort of
Yeah.
on it, but she's just on the natural resources
Okay.
plank of it. She hasn't. So yes,
Yeah.
she's sort of the delegate from Coastal Rivers.
Right,
that
yeah.
has been participating.
And Stephen and I did both go to the kickoff meeting for the comprehensive plan and just hearing some of the ideas. Those are already things that that Coastal Rivers is thinking about in its own climate action planning,
Yep.
and that could very easily be plugged into.
So I'm just curious, just following up on what Tom was saying, what typically would those grant monies be used for? Have you heard from other towns or early thinking around that?
Yeah. Do you want to go first?
Yeah,
with some
sure. So I mean,
examples?
there's a whole number of examples. One that Coastal Rivers has already kind of been looking at just generally is culvert replacement, sort of managing the risk of stormwater and runoff. It could also be renewable energy development. It could be
Yeah, I know Westport and Monhegan Island both did a groundwater study looking at saltwater intrusion impacts from sea level rise.
Okay.
I know a good amount of other towns are looking at with sea level rise and flooding events and the infrastructure vulnerability of roads, culverts, and any buildings that could be near the shoreline or river line that are vulnerable for sea level rise. And also municipality upgrades for solar or LED, HVAC.
The list that of eligible identified projects that are consistent with the climate action plan, was it over 100?
So there's 72 technically
72.
on that list. Yeah.
And so if we were to be interested in doing any of those particular ones, that's where there's a zero match.
Mhm.
If we wanted to do something that's not on the list, we can still apply. We would have to provide a small match
Yeah. I believe
if
15.
awarded.
Okay.
So it's a pretty broad opportunity for us to try and help meet their goals, but again, meet ours.
Yeah, there's a lot of flexibility with 72.
Is
items.
this something that we can use with the parking lot project?
It's
That's where
very
I would
possible.
be.
Yeah.
There's also an opportunity if you partner with another community to apply for one of these grants that right now it's $50,000. I think there was a effort to try and increase that. I don't know if that's going
Yeah. So if
forward, but
if the town aligns, if its priorities align with any other towns who are enrolled and looking for a community action grant, you could partner. I think it's up to 3 towns for $125,000 for a shared project.
Yeah, it says up to 5. here.
Up to 5. Okay.
so I think there's a lot of reason we should consider this. So long as the board, feels that we should be working towards that climate resiliency goals that the state set out, which it sounds like through the comp plan process is definitely something that's a big priority for that
It
group.
is. Yeah.
Okay.
And if there is like further curiosity about sort of what can be done with the funding, what already has been done, the first year sort of report for the Community Resilience Partnership was released, and it kind of goes into detail about just for specific communities across Maine that applied during past grant cycles, what they've been able to accomplish.
So,
Yeah, that'd be very interesting. Can you shoot us a copy of that?
Yeah.
All right.
and so the town gets can apply 3 times if there's different cycles coming up. So you can get 50,000 now, 50,000.
Yeah, every 8 to 10 months as of right now.
As you keep coming up with neat ideas and you can
Mhm.
keep applying.
Yeah, so that's the hope, is to have, at least 5 priorities identified so you can continue to
Yeah.
power through and continue applying for the grants each cycle.
I think, Andy, it'd be nice to see what we can cross-reference it with current projects
Mhm.
that are already in the works, especially like back parking lot. And we mentioned, I see drainage and water.
Mhm.
I don't know whether the culvert on Church Street.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got culvert on Church Street. So we already have some stuff in our work plan that it would be interesting to see
Mhm.
if, the new stuff. Let's see if we can, it'd be nice to see if we can fit it into some current projects that we're looking for funding for already. So I don't know, is anybody else?
That'd be great.
Yeah, so,
I'm
Yeah.
totally for it.
yeah. Someone's gonna call though, we gotta wait.
No.
Sports Center update.
Yeah, I think we're getting a nod from the board as far as proceeding, and yeah, but it'd be nice to see how we can tie it into some current projects anyway.
If you want to move up on the agenda, that
Yeah,
I did draft it as like a formal motion if the board would entertain that to authorize me to take the.
yeah,
steps to enroll
that's
the
number
community.
5, right? Yeah,
Yes.
so,
E.
yeah. All right, does anybody want to take on that motion, do they?
Well, I'll make a motion to
All right,
approve the
we've got
one.
right here, if you like.
authorize the
Yeah.
town manager to take steps to enroll the community in the Community Resilience Partnership.
Fair enough. Andrea seconds. Any discussion?
Get your letters.
All those in
support
favor?
tomorrow.
Great, thank
All right, motion
Super
carries. Proceed, get us some money somewhere.
Great.
Thank you for presentation. Thank you, guys.
Thank
More
you
than
so
welcome to
much.
hang out. It's
Thank you so
gonna get
much.
exciting before we kick everybody out. I would like to mention to the dwindling crowd that we do have an executive session we'll be moving into after our official action item. So at that point, we've got to clear everybody out and shut the cameras off and all that fun. Kick the newspaper out. You know the drill. So I should have got to mention that ahead of time anyway. So
Thank you,
all right.
ladies.
Thank you guys. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. All right. Andy, do you want to regale us with some updates on public works at this point?
I can. Well, more than just public works, but yes.
Yeah, no, whatever you want to fill the time in with.
Yeah. So some of the capital projects we've been working on, Miles Street, at this time, aren't, with the exception of at least one more invoice for some of the change orders that had occurred. That project, when we checked last week, was a couple of small things we asked the contractor to go back and do. We met with the engineer Monday. Contractor's already satisfied those. The next day he hadn't done those. They were real small minor things.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, as far as we know, that's wrapped up, with the exception again with the at least one more invoice coming.
What was the status? Miles had some lighting. Was that
There is, I have not heard anything more, but there were some lights that Miles, the hospital, had from other projects on campus. That they had 3 of them. I think 2 of them were identical to each other. One was a little bit different, but they happened to fit the bolt pattern that are on the bases that we put in. So they were looking, last I knew, they were looking at getting numbers from an electrician to run that and possibly put those up this year. And so I just haven't heard back from them on that, what that looks like.
So I, on the guardrail down there, that's different than what we normally would do, but is there a coating on there or whatnot? Because it seems like there's a lot of rust on there.
Yeah. So when the request came into the board this summer, I think it was, there was a request that it be patinaed or brown, not as bright or shiny. Typically you're going to put a galvanized treated guardrail up, give it the best lifespan it can. And so what went up was based on the request, and the additional cost was paid for through donation for something that was what they call Core 10, an untreated guardrail. And so it was, I think, $5,000 more was the quote to do that. The posts themselves are treated where they are in the ground, but everything exposed to the air is untreated, more or less. So there will brown a little bit more. There are still saying that, Andrew, our engineer, his experience, they do last, barring anything going through them, cars, that they do hold up for a fair amount of time. And so that was one of the things we took into consideration when we looked at the other option that we presented was a wood rail solution for the guardrail. And that one, I remember the price on that, I had included one replacement on that, which I think took the price of that to like 70,000 or something.
Yeah.
So
considerable.
The decision was they wanted to see the kind of the untreated or brown. It wasn't a painted brown.
I didn't know if they had like a powder coated version or something.
There are. Yeah, I think when we initially reached out to the suppliers or the contractor who called the suppliers, and I think the lead time on some of the treated, powder coated or painted ones, they are out there, but the lead time was beyond what we were going to see and be able to install with this project's timeline.
Yeah, surprised just being there a couple weeks and
patina?
it's
Patina.
oh, yeah.
So most of them started with the patina when they went in. The end.
Yeah, they were, when they first went in, they had a finish. Well, I don't say finish, but they were
right
patinaed.
Yeah. Folks probably weren't down there at all during the process of the installation of those, but I saw a couple going in those posts, and it was interesting, trying to drive post in that road design, where there's a lot of big boulders and riprap up against that. And I think they did a pretty good job considering what they were driving into. We were all kind of wondering how that
was going to go. I really, the whole project, I mean, it looks great. What a difference night and day on Miles Street.
Great.
Just you foresee it going in or whatever. So we'll be excited about getting the phase 2 at some point. So
well, I was
another day.
Was talking with the engineer when we were there that day about, as we stood on the sidewalk and looked back towards Bristol Road, the edge of pavement going out along that strip of grass there and those trees is pretty mangled. We know it needs to be replaced and redone, but while we wait for phase 2, I was going to see if we could at least get some estimates on potentially putting down just like a compacted stone dust path next to that, where we can kind of clean up that ripped up edge at a minimal cost and provide a safe delineated place for people to get to that, and just get the numbers and see what it looks like and see if that's something we would want to entertain or not. We don't right now have a timeline for when phase 2 is going to be completed. I know the hospital is going to ask for more money in their budgets. We both need to see what the total cost of phase 1 was before we know if next year's can be the year or not. So we'll proceed with that. I'll at least try and get a number and see what it would cost. It wouldn't take long to do. We didn't think it would be that much material to actually get it done either. So
It came out nice. I haven't heard from anybody on CLC or the ambulance crew review, but they must be liking going down through there now.
Except for the beginning.
Yeah, except for the beginning.
Yeah.
But boy, that was rough. So
But I
Awesome.
think you're
Thank you,
right,
Andy. Yep.
putting in something to help the pedestrian.
it just, I mean, now that it's there and you can leave right from the hospital main door and walk out there, it's like, I mean, we all agree that we wanted to do it. We just didn't have the funds to put the sidewalk the rest of the way. So, if we can do anything that would provide something now that you get to that intersection, it's kind of stop. So we'll just see what the options are, and whether we can or can't, we can decide later.
okay, fair enough.
For the Egypt Road, engineer and I've been working with the contractor to try and get an estimate of how much shoulder material would be needed to finish out that project. We'll just continue to talk the engineer and I's position on the detail for the reclaim was that part of the shouldering work is included in the reclaimed price that we put out. And then we know the scope was changed to not have a milling, but to have an overlay. So we were talking about the difference in shoulder material for that section of the road. But there would still be areas that are greater than what would have been applied before. So I think what we're trying to do is go through and get an estimate, get a cost for what that looks like, and then agree to move forward and get that finished. I think that's the last remaining piece on that road for
Just the
closing that out.
Yeah.
And some of those drops are pretty substantial. So
Yeah.
we all want to get that wrapped up.
Yeah,
Now,
that's some pretty good.
we
drawings.
had time constraints on that project as well, so. I'm hoping that we can get this
Mhm.
resolved within a week and they can start the next week,
Right.
because it's gone on long enough and the shoulders do drop considerably.
Mhm.
What was
And
the,
the delineators were not really ever put in.
Mhm.
So, and the cone placement was okay at the beginning, but those have kind of.
Most were
just
knocked over pretty
knocked
quickly.
over.
yeah, disappeared and
As campground traffic and, gets heavier, then
Mhm.
we have
Mhm.
more susceptibility to someone going off the road, so.
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, and Belvedere's in the same situation.
right. Yeah, with the shoulder work there.
The only thing over there on that section that I'm aware of that needs to be completed over there. All the drainage work was done. We did call out a few things that we asked them to come back and complete to our standard, our expectation, and they did. One change that we did, Andrew and I did make on that Middenway, that first kind of road going up the hill on the left there. It called for a 10-foot paved apron on that one, which I think it would have extended it not over, but pretty close to where that culvert runs under there. That culvert, we wanted to wait and see the first few rain events. So we didn't drag the asphalt in that far. Didn't seem that it needed to at that time. And because we might need to get in there and change that culvert. It is a little old, but it still seems like it would flow fine. It's just a matter of how much comes down. Do we need to upsize it at all? And we weren't sure until it was kind of an unchanneled and unditched. I think a lot of the water stayed right at the road level and then just sheeted across. And now that we've got a ditch dug from that driveway above along that steep hill, we just want to see how that functions and works, and does it function? Because it looks like that culvert just pops out between that road and the next driveway. And then there's just kind of a meandering, it just either sits there or it might make its way to the next culvert. So there is a culvert into
It's
that
on
one.
the
So we just
volume.
want to see how that works, and we might need to come back in as a separate thing and take care of that drainage piece there. But the rest of it I thought came out pretty well. There were people that have noted the change in grade on that corner, as well as there was a dip between Branch Road and going down that hill towards Oyster Creek that was able to kind of get brought up a little bit. That takes out a blind spot for folks kind of coming out through there. So
Yeah, that was coming along, going nicely. So, yeah.
any questions on either of those ones?
I think so.
Good, just get moving.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where are we at on the time frame on it? As far as what they're,
Well, the last board meeting, the contractor said that the machine was scheduled and would be able to come within 2 weeks. So
Okay.
we're at that point. And it's just a matter of engineer and I and he all agreeing on, I'd like to know the cost if there's going to be one before we commit to
yeah.
laying
Due diligence.
6 miles, I guess, of shoulder material. So we just need to hear back from him. We're waiting for the estimates on that.
Fair enough.
The parking lot project, still waiting for the sanitary district attorney. They were on vacation last week. And then, so just we need to hear back from them on whether they would recommend to the board to approve it. So
Paragraph's getting smaller.
yes.
I like how you got it down to one line this time.
No, this
So we-
Eventually is it going to disappear?
Until we get that squared away, I can't really proceed with submitting
what it
anything
is,
to
I think,
EDA,
yeah.
but once we get notice, the ability to move forward with that, we should be able to proceed with. Because again, the EDA, the committee decided to pull together the revised scope of work, which was running parallel to this.
Yeah.
Because they want it all at once.
Yeah. No, I know. I can't do it. It is what it is. So I just like give you a hard time.
Yeah. Public works activity, they've been, most of all the crosswalks on state aid roads or state highways have been done. We did have that completed. I think that was included in the warrant this week. That was about 2,700, I believe, $2,700 to have them do those crosswalks. They got the intersection at Biskie in Maine, which I thought was important.
Yeah.
The crosswalk out by the school, by the hospital, and all the stuff through Main Street. So our crew is continuing to chip away at what they can. They've stenciled. I'm not planning to have them paint all of the parking stalls in the parking lot. That's okay. Most of them are there and defined.
You can still see it for the most part in
Yeah.
there, and the parking lot's such a mess. that
Yes.
It's the lines won't stay there very long.
We've painted the voter parking and the permit required ones. So they're clearly marked in yellow. So they
Arrows are
know.
down, and yeah, it's pretty well delineated.
We've added an extra sign for the ones along the waterfront for the permit parking required. That was a big issue last summer for folks that need to enforce the parking ordinance. So we put an extra sign up in the middle there, so it was clear. They're painted, they're stenciled, and that should be a lot clearer and helpful for the enforcement. For the parking ambassador to be able to make the enforcement of the parking ordinance.
Parking ambassador, that's
Our parking ambassador.
It's much more diplomatic, isn't it? Yeah.
We'd like to be able to not write the tickets if we can. And so some of that we acknowledged last year was to, help find parking perhaps for folks and not wait for them to leave. And we're not trying to generate revenue from this. We'd like them to have a good experience, but
We want to educate,
So I'm gonna call him
educate
parking
first. And,
ambassador.
yeah.
So on the idea of the wave watch
Mhm.
walk thing, is that still going forward?
it will. I just needed to get the stencil in
Stencil?
stock. Yeah.
Oh, so you ordered it?
I have not ordered it
Oh,
yet.
okay.
No.
All right.
But we'll get it done. The continuing on the shoulder work outside of those two roads that have been done in that project, I think we do need to look at and get a sense of where our other roads are that we do need to raise. There's bigger drop offs on some of our other roads that haven't had work done on them than what we see on Egypt Road. So I think we need to be mindful and try and get that back into a routine work plan as washouts happen to bring that in. I know there's some on the state road on Main Street, the upper end, that I've notified them about. I'll keep sending them messages about the need to get in there. One of them's causing us to have to respond on that Belvedere extension piece. A lot of channeling has kind of washed all that material in big rains now.
Yeah.
It ends up spilling out in the Belvedere. So we've cleaned that up a few times and we'll keep relaying that message to them to hopefully get in there before someone goes off there, because some of those are pretty deep.
Mm. Yeah.
And that's a higher, a good speed. People go along pretty good clip up through there. Personnel matters, we do have an opening, have not posted it yet, but the part-time office position, we had a resignation with that 2 weeks ago, I think it was, right after the last meeting. So we'll be looking to fill that position. And been interviewed 2 people for the town planner position. Did that with 2 of the board members from Newcastle as they are waiting to fill an interim town manager's position. And so we've offered the position, just working through some final details on that, but hope to make that recommendation by the next, well, before the next meeting, but if we can work out within our budgeted amounts in agreement there. Office closed, was closed Monday for Juneteenth. Looking forward, we do have fiscal year end closeout process. Slight change, open for discussion, but a slight change from what I put in here. The staff will feel they can work through Thursday. Cheryl will be in Friday to do the closeout. It's a big one right before 4th of July, so they acknowledge they want to try and be open as much as they can. When it comes to Monday, the holiday is celebrated on Tuesday. Was asking them, originally had asked them about what do you want to do with Monday. Some towns on the listserv, a lot of them on my listserv said they'd be open Monday. Other towns replied on another listserv said that their towns were closing on Monday. Didn't ask or try and track how many were open 5 days a week versus 4 days a week.
Right, yeah. So what's it?
One of my recommendations to the staff was to consider closing Monday, but be open that Friday. So we're still open.
You'd be
It'd be
open on
3
the
days,
30th.
but
You'd be
yeah.
open on the 30th.
The following week.
Oh, the following, like.
Yeah.
it's- sixth or
Yeah, I
something,
came by
whatever.
yesterday, I was
Seventh.
surprised it was closed, but now you
Seventh.
explained it.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's where I'm leaning right now. They'd be open Thursday before the holiday weekend. Just means Cheryl will be in Friday a little bit longer to close that out, and she's fine with that. And then closed when Monday potentially, and then be open that Friday.
And then
It'll be
open on
the
Friday.
7th.
7th,
Yeah.
yeah,
If the board thinks that's be okay.
it's fine.
I'd see for the most part, I don't know, a lot of businesses are doing that. I don't know what kind of activity you're gonna have on Monday, the 3rd
Mhm.
at the town level. That, I mean, I guess if we can make it up on the Friday, I don't see any problem with that. Yeah, so good, yeah.
It'll work. So
I'm good.
Yeah, you yeah, you could pay those taxes.
To make a motion on it, Andy?
You don't,
It's just a,
kind of just seeing if that would be amenable, and those, I mean, I've been kind of making those office decisions as we need to, but try and just keep you informed, and just, it's no different than, if sometimes Christmas falls midweek and sometimes the board will grant the staff to close and acknowledge
yeah.
that. I'm not asking for them to get a paid another day off. It just, they're willing to swap that
Swap
Sunday
it
for
out,
Friday.
no, that sounds good. So,
Okay.
cool.
Perfect. That's all I had on my updates.
Hodgson Street?
I have no updates for
Okay.
that one.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's why you didn't put it in the packet.
Yeah.
But it went
All
out
right,
for,
good enough,
it
though.
did go out for
Went
bid?
to bid, yeah. My understanding is that the contractor was thinking sometime in August they'd be able to come in and do that, but there's nothing firm at this
Okay.
point.
That's, I was just curious if you had.
They
any
have
updates
till
on
the
it,
end
yeah.
of October, I believe it is, to complete the project.
Okay.
But they thought they'd be able to get in there this summer.
Gotcha,
we're
cool.
gonna make sure pre-construction meeting happens and everybody knows what's on the agenda for that project, so we don't miss something like Egypt Road.
Yeah.
So we had is it called pre-construction? We met with the representative from CDBG already with the contractor and our engineer, and went over the requirements of the program at least. So they're aware of the extra pieces that they need to do and comply with that. They've got to provide wage data. I've got to do a couple surveys throughout the project with the employees that are out on site. So there's a few things like that, but in terms of the detail and the specifications, I mean, we have our own process for going through changes. Some of these other funders have more strict
Yeah,
requirements, and so yeah, that'll be something that we'll work through with them and get with.
good enough. All right. Well, we can move right along here. Get some more official action items. I suppose we can get some housekeeping out of the way for the board at this point. The board like to entertain electing officers and secretary. We have positions for chair, first vice chair, second vice chair, and secretary that we need to get out of the way. And then we also need to set the time and date for the meetings for the next fiscal year. So
I'll make a motion to reelect Daryl Fraser as chair.
I'll second.
thank you. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, a couple. All right. I'm
I'll
gonna
make a motion to
gonna
appoint
abstain.
Josh.
So,
I'm sorry, I'll make a
Yeah, go ahead,
motion to elect Josh as vice chair, first vice chair.
yeah, I'll second that. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, yeah, you abstaining there? So,
Yeah, I never voted.
And I'll make a motion to nominate Tom Anderson as second vice chair.
I'll second that.
Okay, we good? You guys all right with that, Tom?
I'm okay
Throw
with
you
that.
under the bus? Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, I'll go to discuss.
Oh,
I
sorry.
made there's a motion. Did I get a second?
Yeah. I
Yes.
Josh seconds. Okay, yes, discussion. Go ahead. Dan.
So what are the responsibilities of a chairperson separate from the rest of the board members as well as the first and second vice chair? Are there like
So-
specific responsibilities?
The chair position basically gives run the meeting, right?
Sure.
More or
Yeah.
less. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of, there's no separate powers. One person doesn't have any
Okay.
sway over anything else. It also gives the town manager kind of a direct contact with the board. you
Sure,
know,
point person, yeah,
And in the absence of a chair, vice chair steps in place to meetings.
So if you weren't here, then Josh.
And
was
if
on.
Josh and I were gone, or whomever is in that position, the second vice chair would step in. So it
Okay.
just kind of creates that flow. But
Okay.
as far as the what do I want to say, maybe chain of command is the wrong term, but the board still acts as a whole. None of us can do anything more than any others or act on our own on behalf of the board unless it's kind of, we've agreed upon stuff like that. So it just gives a little continuity, I guess. So,
Okay.
yeah. No, it's a good question. It's I had no idea. And they made me do it once. But, you do it. Oh, great. But thank you. All those in favor of Tom, right? Yeah, we're right. All right. And that motion carries as well. So, okay. I'll make a motion to appoint Linda Letning as secretary if she wishes.
I'll second that.
Okay, yeah. Well, thank you. Any discussion on that? All those in favor? All right. Sorry, Linda, you're gonna have to keep plugging away over there. So. All right. And the next item would be setting the time and date for our the meetings coming up for next year. I'll make a motion to set the first and third Wednesdays of each month at 5:30 in the evening for our regular meetings.
Second.
That pleases the board.
I
Okay.
guess the only discussion I have on that
Yep.
is, are there any holidays within those that we can address now and just move it, or
I did not look.
just to
Yeah,
get it
far
out
ahead.
of the way?
Yeah.
State federally recognized holidays?
Yes.
It didn't look, I can look now.
Something
but-
sneaks up on us.
Sometimes we might have two and sometimes we
Yeah.
might not have any.
You'll get like,
I think it's Christmas is the next one that would be, nothing else.
Veteran Armistice Day. Oh, my God.
Veterans Day always on.
Veterans Day. I went way back, didn't I?
This year Veterans Day is on a Friday.
Yeah, then those are the ones that sometimes come into
And there's
play. So.
something else.
Yeah,
Indigenous
Christmas is
People
on
Days.
Mondays as well as New Year's Day.
Good there.
So nothing obvious jumping out. Yeah.
MLK is Monday.
The only other one that would jump would be Patriots Day,
Oh, yeah.
or is that one?
That's gonna be a Monday.
It's always Monday.
It's usually a Monday,
I
isn't it?
think we
Yeah.
must be good.
Patriots Day was Monday.
June
Yeah.
19th does fall on the third Wednesday,
Okay.
It does.
so
Is that
Okay.
holiday though, really, isn't it the 10th?
Juneteenth.
June
The 19th.
June 19th.
It's a Monday, no matter what the date is. No?
Oh, the third
I
Monday.
don't
in
know.
June.
It's,
I was under the impression
yeah.
it was June 19th.
It's 19th.
It's always I thought it was always the 19th.
Okay.
Okay.
So we'll have to figure that one out.
Yeah,
All right. We'll cross that bridge when we get close to it.
Yeah,
So.
at least we'll,
Got a ways to go.
that's the only one.
yeah, that's good.
Good year.
Yeah, no, it's a year out, so we're doing pretty good. So. Okay, I'll call for a vote on the motion and all those in favor. All right, and motion passes. So continue as we have been for a while. All right, so that this goes to the housekeeping. We do. Yes,
There
Dan, go
seems
ahead.
to be on the select board procedures.
Mhm.
There's number 3 that it says
So-
confirm and appoint town official.
We're gonna do that. Yeah, it's not on the agenda for this evening. I believe Andy will have it
Oh, I
for our
see.
next
Okay. Fine.
next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. We want to have it for the.
So we go through, I mean, there's like the fire chief, code officer.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's probably
Yeah.
12 or 15 different appointments the
Yeah.
board has to make, and then we
Fence
would-
viewer.
fence viewer, we would
Don't
take
fence
up,
viewer.
sometimes we might have
Get into
committee
that. Yeah.
appointments potentially that we need to confirm or reappoint. So we just didn't go through that list leading up before town meeting, and I didn't ask them to.
So we've got
Hustle to
time,
do
yeah,
that
get
before
it-
this
get it
meeting.
prepared for next
Okay.
meeting. We'll have a list ahead of time. Yeah.
Great.
No.
I think last year we took it up at that first meeting in July anyways.
It seems like we did, right? Yeah, yeah. So fair enough. All right. We do have some cemetery deeds, perpetual care contracts. Any questions? Do I have a motion on those if we want to move those along?
Make a motion to issue the cemetery deed and perpetual care and maintenance contract as presented.
Thank you, Andrew. Do I hear a second? I'll
Right.
Yeah. We'll give it to Dan. We'll give it to Dan. All right. I think he squeaked out on you. So, yeah. So, Dan seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, motion carries there. We did E. So we do have a special town meeting warrant to consider. And do you want to, I think we've all read this, but would you like to do a quick briefing on it?
Do we have to do this one?
We did that one already.
We did it
Yeah,
already.
yeah, Dan
Okay.
moved that one. We moved him ahead.
Okay.
Presenters there. So yeah, go ahead, Andy there.
So there were a few items with this year's annual town meeting warrant that few different things, two left out, one unknowingly, one knowingly. The first one was the tax levy limit. I don't know why or how we missed it, but it just got removed from last year's and didn't pick up on it. So we need to take that up. The second one was the one that talked about the gifts from the Massasoit Engine Company to allow the town to accept, for the board to accept those on behalf of the town. I thought that one of the articles did talk about gifts in grants and other things. I thought that would apply there. John had pointed out that it really looks like that speaks mostly to money, monetary object, and not the actual physical object or equipment, which is often what they'll gift to the town. A lot of times they fundraise on their own company. It's a nonprofit and buy equipment that is needed or would like to have, and then we'll gift that to the town's possession. So that way it's covered on our insurance and is available for the department. So we agreed that, we should put that back. And then the last one there was a typo, but it wasn't grammatical, so it didn't jump out at us when we reviewed the warrant. There were, I don't know,
Yeah.
it was in front of the board. It was in front of 3 or 4 staff members. We didn't pick up on Hardy Roots was the entity that presented to the board and request the funds for their organization. The article read to provide the funds to Healthy Roots. So now that the article has passed as it was written, now what we need to do is ask the voters to reappropriate those funds that were voted on for Healthy Roots to Hardy Roots. The MMA had said, wait and see how the vote plays out, because absentee ballots were already out at that point when we saw it. And so just ask that to be reappropriated. I did make a minor change to Article 2 from what I had put out in the board packet. And that was, it'll read to see if the town will vote to increase the property tax levy limit, which was calculated at 1,815,197 with this year's form, established by Damariscotta, for Damariscotta by the state, in the event the municipal budget approved under the preceding articles will result in a tax commitment that is greater than the limit. So there's 2 options. You can either ask the voters to exceed the limit or increase the limit. Looking at last year's calculation, there's a pretty good gap in what the limit is and what our levy amount is. And so at some point, there's reasons that lead to that. And so at some point, you have the option to ask the voters to increase the limit. And so it kind of resets that number. So I'm just making a suggestion, a recommendation that we consider increasing the limit. We still do the calculations every year and still ask the voters. At that point, we can reconsider exceeding or increasing, but things like the debt service, we took that on a couple years ago. That would cause perhaps a big gap to occur. There've been some increases in the past few years. Last year's gap was 420,000. This year's gap 597. That's 100,000. And so it looks like, in my opinion, and maybe we want to consider raising that levy limit to be more consistent with what our spending is today. And again, years forward, we would consider exceeding or increasing as needed going forward. But instead of having that gap be so far apart and continuing, I think maybe we want to readjust that limit.
Yeah, I agree.
When we word it to exceed, it's only for that year. We would take what we did was we took last year's number because it was to exceed. And so I used the 1.7 as a basis for the increase. We don't have enough new value to add. And so that's a factor. The state determines what that growth factor is based on two things. And so we're kind of limited, and the state says, here's what we think you should be increasing by. And again, we're using the previous year's limit that was established. So if we're seeing that gap, I think you might want to consider asking for that number, that levy limit, to be increased to closer what we've actually been seeing the last few years.
What does that even mean, the levy limit?
So again, so I've provided the
I know the
worksheet. So I'm just going to open that up. So at some point when this law passed, the town would use the previous year's levy amount, the amount of money you're asking the taxpayers to raise to fund things. So it shows on that spreadsheet there that for next year's budget, we're asking for $1.24 million to be deducted from the overall municipal appropriations. This form doesn't take into account school, county, the other things. This is just the municipal operations, our debt service, our reserve fund allocations. And so we're offsetting the amount we need to raise by the 1.2 million and other revenues and offset state reimbursements and other things. But we still need to raise the $2.4 million. And when we look at on that second sheet there, which is page 34 of your packet. The second box down has calculating this year's levy limit. And so part of that is based on the previous year's levy. When we approved it last year, it was 1.7 million. You apply the state's growth factor to that number, and that's at 1.845. We then reduce it by the amount of additional revenue sharing we're going to receive this year. And that leaves us with a levy limit at 1.815 million. And so that's what the state, based on previous year's tax levy amount, says that's what we should be targeting. And so what we would be needing to comply with the LD1, the state statute, would be to ask the voters to exceed that amount by $597,000 for this year alone. We would then, if that passes like that, we then go into next year using the $1.815 million as the amount, as the levy limit. And so unless we cut $600,000 next year, we know that base amount that we're going to base next year's number on isn't high enough. So we'll ask the voters either again next year to exceed or increase. And so my recommendation would be to consider allowing the voters to decide if we would increase the levy limit to get it more aligned with what we have been seeing the last few years for what our expenses are, what we've been asking them to fund. And then next year, we would start with $2.4 million as our previous year's limit, apply the state's growth factor, go through the budgeting process, see what the gap is there. But it would be a lot less than what we're seeing there now. And I think what I'm seeing is it's just showing that we're well above what the state's growth factor. We put the growth factor on ourselves when we first had started. If we have never asked it to be increased, then we've been working off of that first year and just the state's growth factor. I think this year's growth factor was like 4%. I remember it's in here. Hang on. 4.31%.
You have to look at the last year's to see if we're running a deficit last year too.
So last year we were $420,000. That was the gap between what we were asking for and what the levy limit calculated to be.
Okay. So this levy limit, I guess I'm just trying to get my head around it. So we can just decide that we want it to be bigger.
We can, the voters can.
The voters can,
Mhm.
and so the state guidance from LD one or whatever it was,
Mhm.
is it gets just reset for the town?
It would. If the article is read to increase that amount, we would reset that year's levy limit to the 2.4. And so again, next year we start with 2.4 as the foundation for calculating the increase. The state tells us what that growth factor is. And so we multiply that and they tell us, here's your target. Here's what you should be aiming for. You know, we can reassess it next year and say, are we within it? Are we asking the voters to exceed it? If we ask them to exceed it, you know, we apply that. It's a 1 year allowance to exceed.
Yeah.
And so the year after that.
So when this whole thing started, whenever it was,
Mhm.
like. So we've just exceeded, and this is just a built up and exceeding
Mhm.
that, whatever that original guidance was.
I have not,
from-
yeah, I
from
haven't
the
gone
beginning.
back to look and see if we've ever asked it to be increased.
Yeah.
In fairness, I've
Well-
not looked to see if that's the case. Last year it was worded to exceed. I'm guessing it was been like that for a few years. And so it looks at it 1 year time in that case.
But in a way, it's kind of accumulated excess number over
Right.
whatever the state guidance has been.
It
for
makes
the
sense to
town.
catch up and then see where we are.
Okay.
So if the board would like to entertain the warrant as I've amended it and presented tonight, you can. If you want to revert back to the exceedance for the 1 year and with the gap, that's as I had originally put it in there, that's fine too. But
Yeah.
either way, we got to do one or the other.
Motion to raise the limit 597, 327.
Well, that
I'm gonna make a motion to approve the warrant
Okay.
as presented. So Andy has the changes are in the warrant. So if you want to make a motion to just approve the warrant as presented just get the time and date on there, Tom,
All right.
and the place, sorry.
I'll make a motion to approve the warrant.
You got it right here if you want.
As long as Daryl's name
As
is spelled right.
presented on,
It's my name spelled.
as presented on Wednesday, July 5th, 2023 at
Uh-huh.
5:30
So it's as presented to be held on.
to be held on. As presented to be held on Wednesday, July 5th, 2023 at 5:30 at the Damariscotta Town Office. So
With my name spelled correctly. Oop, that's
Daryl's
mine
name
now.
spelled
Yeah. I'll take that back down here. Oops, sorry, Dan. None of us are professionals here. We're just, yeah. All right. All right. So Tom we have a motion on the floor from Tom. Do I hear a second? Second. Andrew seconds. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Okay, motion carries.
But you said you made a motion.
No, Tom
Made the
made the motion. Yeah. Yeah.
Daryl just helped him say it.
I didn't know. It was a mess.
it's a little help.
We need a little help sometimes, all of us.
Little help
So
from my
so it
friends.
was we'll give Tom the motion. It was a group effort. Thank you. You sure you want to stay as secretary? I mean, we got you throwing curveballs at you. All right, we do have yeah. We have another the Midcoast Humane Society, sorry, the annual agreement is on for consideration.
Mhm.
There a motion on the I don't think anything's really changed on that, right? It was the same from last year, so I'll make a motion to approve the Midcoast Humane and Town of Damariscotta agreement for services as presented.
I'll second.
Thank you, Josh. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay. And Andy, do we have one more? Oh, no, wait, what do we have here? This is the.
If you're willing to entertain it, or I can put it on the next meeting where I forgot to mention it.
It
earlier.
wasn't on the agenda, so I just,
Right.
yeah, is this something we
Yeah, we have annually, I guess the board considers, there's a state statute that allows the municipalities, you don't have to, but allows municipalities to require people that have back taxes, that when they make a payment and there are back taxes on their account, that those payments in this new year will be applied to any back due amounts.
Oh,
Some people do come in and say, I want these to go against this year.
this year, but they've got to go back.
But if they have a lien and outstanding payment that's accruing interest, it's in their best interest
Oh, yeah.
generally to make that happen. But again, some people do request it and without the board saying that's what our policy, if you will, is we have to honor that request. And so we did have someone come in the other day and had to kind of explain that to them, that, well, there's a
Okay.
lien on there and you really should do it that way. And so it just reminded us to
Yeah.
do this.
We can,
I'd probably put it on the
we
next agenda.
can table it for the next agenda. Yeah, just so everybody gets a chance to look at it.
It's gonna go through, but
It's pretty straightforward, but why don't we, yeah, just
That's fine.
an effort of time and whatnot, so, okay. That's good enough. All right, I think that covers all our actions. So we have somebody waiting patiently for us over there. All right, if it's all the same to everybody, I'm gonna make a motion to move into executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA 4056E for a legal matter. So at this time, we'll give it a few minutes. We'll shut down all audio recording and video. We'll clear the room out, kick everybody out. So this is one of the few times that we have to do things to, not behind the scenes, but to protect we will, what, yeah, I
Am I supposed to have a separate one? Executive